Okay, guys, welcome to the daily debate. Today's topic is coding should be made compulsory in all Indian schools. And for the proposition, we have Rudra and Paksh, while in the opposition, we have Niyati and Angarini. And there would be the format for this debate would be 3 minutes of opening statements, and then we would be having a question and answer round. So the proposition first speaker, you have 3 minutes to start. If you do you need a self count?
Just a minute. Okay, 1 minute. I'll go and can I do the count?
Yeah.
Okay. Start in three, two, one. I genuinely believe that coding is no longer optional. It's becoming a necessity. Whether we like it or not, the world is moving towards automation, AI, and digital everything. And honestly, India is still quite behind when it comes to coding education compared to countries like the US or UK, where young kids are learning how to code from primary schools. In India, most schools only hear about coding in higher secondary or college, and by then may feel it's like too hard or too late. But if we start teaching coding from early age, it becomes like learning a language, easy, natural, and even fun. Even if a student doesn't want to become a coder or software engineer, they will still use coding skills in some way, whether it's creating website, using Excel formulas, automating tasks, or even handling AI tools. Basic of coding is becoming part of every job. That's why I strongly feel that coding should be taught in schools, just like math or English, not as a subject but as a skill that builds problem solving, creativity, and logical thinking. At the end of the day, the world is changing fast, and to keep it up, we need to make sure that students are ready. Because in the future, knowing the basics of coding will be as important as knowing how to read and write. Thank you.
Okay, works. You still had 1 minute 40 seconds though, but moving ahead, the opposition first speaker, you have 3 minutes. Do you need a self count?
I know I'll start in my own countdown. I'll start in three, two, and one. Good evening to the chair and my respected opposition and the House at large. Today I stand in firm opposition of the motion. And imagine a young student in rural India seated in a classroom with no electricity, no internet, and maybe even a broken chalkboard. Now picture someone saying, "You must learn Python." No, not the snake, the programming language. That is the reality that meets today's motion. Coding should be made compulsory in all Indian schools. Not only impractical, it's also unfair. We as the opposition strongly disagree with this motion, not because we don't see the value of coding, but because compulsory coding for all Indian students ignores the diversity, the infrastructure gaps, and the very purpose of education. I'll begin by defining the key terms which the proposition has completely forgotten to do. Compulsory in this context means something which is mandatory for every student, regardless of their background, interest, or even their learning style. Coding is the process of writing instructions in a programming language like Java or Python to create software, apps, or websites. Now, here's why this motion fails short of logic as well as equity. India is home to over 14 lakh schools. They're not all equipped to handle compulsory coding. According to the UIDSE Plus 2022 data, only 34% of schools have proper internet connectivity and only 44% have proper computers. That means that over half the schools in India cannot physically support coding classes even if they wanted to implement them. The motion assumes that digital India that assumes for a digital India that simply doesn't exist yet. It's like trying to stream a 4K video on a 2G connection. Ambitions, but doomed. Until every school has access to stable internet, computers, and trained teachers, enforcing coding as compulsory subject will only deepen the digital divide and leave millions of students behind. The infrastructure gap makes it unrealistic. And let's be honest, coding is not for everyone. Some students want to be scientists or engineers, yes, but others dream of becoming painters, teachers, chefs, athletes, musicians, or even authors. The beauty of education lies in offering students the choice and the space to explore their interests and talents. Making coding compulsory risks turning it into just another exam subject, something you have to memorize, something you're scared for, something you resent. But when we force every student to code, we forget that not every child thinks like a machine. In fact, and making it mandatory, we take a creative skill and turn it into a burden. We really want students to associate coding with pressure rather than passion. Forcing coding on everyone kills the curiosity and ignores the choice of students. Now, the proposition might say, isn't coding the language of the future? Yes, coding is a powerful tool, but the future isn't built by coders alone. McKinsey's 2022 Global Workforce Report revealed that employees increasingly value soft skills like critical thinking, collaboration, adaptability, and even in the tech industry. The future will need not just coders, but communicators, designers, problem solvers, and empathetic leaders. Coding can be one option, but it's not the only path. And let's not forget, we don't make music compulsory for everyone just because Mozart existed. Why should every child be forced to learn coding just because someone will enter tech?
Niyati, conclude.
Yeah, that's it. That's my last point.
Yeah. The proposition second speaker. Do you need a self count or?
No, I'll count my speech up. So yeah, I'm starting in 3, 2, 1. Yeah. As Albert Einstein once said, logic will get you from A to Z, but imagination will get you everywhere. And the most important thing here is that when there's an amalgamation of logic and imagination, we get coding. I'm Rudra Patel, who will be speaking for the motion that coding should be made compulsory in all the schools in India. First off, coding increases the cognitive ability of a student. It helps them develop their brains in a better way and also helps them develop problem solving skills, which are not only limited to the computer in front of which they apply their codes. However, the problem solving skills developed in a child who has learned coding at an early age will also help them in solving day to day problems in a better way. Because coding is essentially finding different ways to solve the same problem. And that is what actual problem solving skills are all about. Moreover, coding also opens up a wide spectrum of job opportunities for people. I would like to say that even though it might not be feasible for all Indian schools to afford coding, it is still feasible for at least 50% of the schools, which is actually an understatement according to me. I still believe that at least 60 to 70% of the schools could afford at least one computer lab, and that would benefit the students tremendously. Moreover, this is an era where even artists and musicians are working on digital arenas because even art is being made through digital mediums because not everyone could be a painter, but everyone can be a coder, and that is opening up the arena of art and music to the people who have not actually had an expertise in that area. Moreover, coding also taps into both the hemispheres of our brain. It helps us think logically, but also creatively, because we apply logic learned during the coding programs to find creative solutions to the same problem. So that is where coding actually helps us improve our logical thinking abilities, which could be used anywhere to employ ourselves. And moreover, coding also acts as a tool to sort of market ourselves because people who want to get a good job nowadays, for example, doctors, they can't just be doctors nowadays. The profession has come to a level of biotech because coding has sort of changed the landscape of medical science. It has empowered us to go beyond what we could actually do 10 years ago. And that is the reason coding should actually be taught to everyone and not just to the limited PCM students or PCB students. Coding also improves the critical thinking skills of a student, and it also helps us to it's a skill. I would like to bring an analogy to the table. Coding is like what salt is to food. You cannot have food without salt. Similarly, you cannot have a job without coding in the era in which we are living in, because coding is like it has become the bread and butter of every profession, and coders obviously have a much
Delegate, please
greater
conclude. I
value
mean,
in
the proposition, please conclude.
yeah, so that's what I would like to say, that coders will always have an edge over non-coders, psychologically, mentally, as well as in job opportunities. Thank you.
Good speech. The opposition second speaker. Do you need a self count or?
Yeah, I'll start in my self count of 3, 2, and 1. So, the House believes that coding should be made compulsory in all Indian schools. But my first question goes is, how beneficial is that? Today, we live in the age of artificial intelligence where we can get the codes in just few seconds. We don't even have to memorize the lines. So, how beneficial is that? Secondly, the motion today says that coding should be made mandatory or compulsory. But everybody is not born to be a good coder. Every other students might have other interests as well. For example, if I want to be a good journalist, for what do I need coding for? If I want to be If I want to excel in the field of sports, why do I need coding? It's absolutely absurd in those fields. Thirdly, it says the motion also mentions that coding should be compulsory in all Indian schools. The biggest problem that comes in the way is that do we have the proper infrastructure for carrying out coding? Most of the Indian schools we have, they don't even have proper labs, proper teachers who can impart proper coding skills. Fourth point is that let's look. It is saying that coding should be made compulsory in schools. In schools, what basically happens is that we get the knowledge of the basic coding skills. And if suppose I'm not willing to be a good coder or take up coding as a profession in my future, what is the use of that? Basically, a basic knowledge of coding will be given in the schools. And if I don't want to continue with coding in future, that knowledge will be useless. And fifth thing is that one of the proposition members mentioned that in today, even art is made through technologies. Let me tell you, it's true that for art, you need technology today, but that does not say that you need to be a good coder to use art. You just need to know how to use the technology. You don't have to code, or you don't need to know how to do coding. That's not even mandatory. You just need to have a good idea of how to use the different artificial intelligence or the technologies to prepare your work. That's what. So thus, I would like to conclude that coding should not be made mandatory or compulsory in the Indian schools. It can be an option. People who are willing to pursue with coding in future, they can do so. But for those who are not willing to do it, other options should be open. Thank you.
Good speech. You still had 19 seconds remaining, but right now we would be moving towards the question and answer round. The proposition. If you have any question for the opposition, go ahead.
Yes, I've got a question for Angarini. Yeah. So one of the points you said is that if a person wants to become a sports person or a journalist, they don't need coding. Firstly, less than 1% of Indian population is ever going to become a sports person or a journalist. And moreover, coders can become sports people or journalists, but journalists or sports people can't become coders. So what do you have to say on this, like sort of multi-accessibility that coding actually provides to a student?
Okay. So, like, if I want to be a good cricketer today, what for do I need coding? If I want to be a good journalist today, even though the people joining journalism is quite less, but if I want to be a good journalist today, what for do I need coding? It's absolutely a waste of knowledge for me. That's it.
Could I have a rebuttal answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Not
actually,
an answer. You could ask a follow up to her.
yeah, all right. In this era, sports is being driven by technology. There are sports analytics. There are sports like statisticians who have always like crunched the data. Like I would like to give the example of the book Moneyball, which points out how underdogs in baseball actually won the MLB just by crunching the data, and for that you need coding. So even though you might not need coding for the playing part of the sports, you still need it to win, and that is not just limited to the sports arena. Coding is required to win in every field. So what do you think about this thing? Because this is actually going against your statement.
Okay, so as you say that if I want to join up in the sport analytics, for that purpose, I need coding. So let's take for an example, there are two students in a school and the school says that coding is mandatory. Number one person wants to be a journalist and the number two person wants to be a sport analyst. So why do we need to make coding mandatory? We can make it optional. This person who's wanting to join up sport analytics can take up coding, and the one who's willing to do journalism only in sports journalist may drop coding as well. So that's it.
I would
Can
say
I
it's for
add
the
to that?
same reason.
May I add to that?
For the reason that every
Wait. The follow up has not been
yeah.
granted right now, Rudra. Niyati, go ahead.
So the proposition keeps telling us that coding is the backbone of modern technology. And okay, fine, you are right. But your logic fails in multiple spots. First one thing, we use many things that we don't need to build ourselves. We use smartphones every day. We don't need to manufacture microchips. We eat food every day. You don't need to, everyone doesn't need to become a farmer. We use electricity every day. We're not all electrical engineers. Yes, it is true that coding does run on the back end of multiple systems, be it journaling, be it sports, but that doesn't mean that everyone must be a coder. That's like saying everyone who uses a car must learn mechanical engineering because there is an engine under the hood. What matters is that people have an option to learn coding, not that they're forced into it, which is what the motion is applying for the proposition side because it clearly uses the word mandatory.
Cool.
I have a
Good
question for.
answer. Yeah, wait. Since the proposition just asked a question right now, the opposition. If you have any question for the prop, go ahead. No questions from the opposition?
I have one, but it's like kind of general. It's not direct towards one speaker.
Go ahead.
Ajay, so you talk about how coding is important, how it's really, really big in today's time. But do you have any realistic implementation plan, or are you just making huge promises without any proper backup?
The proposition, any of you, if you have the answer, could answer. Could answer the
Yeah, all
question.
right. Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, firstly, every great idea has to come from somewhere. What I would say is coding has to be implemented in a way that it reaches out to maximum number of people because everyone might not be interested in coding, but we don't know who might. If coding is given as an option to every student, it's made mandatory for every student, I would say, then you could, then there might be like, I would say 20-25% of students who might realize they are actually into coding after they start learning it. That happens with every one of us. So coding is like if there's an implementation of coding, then that's the only way we can realize who actually could go ahead in coding or not.
Cool.
Chair, may I speak?
Follow?
No, not a follow-up, just a clarification.
Go ahead.
My question was about how you would implement coding. You told me the benefits of coding, which is what your side has been saying in both your opening speeches, your rebuttal speeches, as well as all the questions you've asked. I am asking you about implementation, which is something that you have not even touched upon, which is a major factor in this debate.
Niyati, that point has been noted. Okay.
Uh,
So,
can I answer to that?
sorry,
Yeah,
Rudra, you have already answered the question wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
yes. Cool. Palash and Angareni. Palash, do you have any like question? Since your hand is raised.
yeah, I have a question.
For the
For it's a
opposition?
opposition.
Go ahead.
Uh, you guys said that not every school has computers or infrastructure to teach coding. That's a real issue, but it's not a reason to delay. It's a reason to start investing now. Coding doesn't need expensive labs. There are free on offline tools like Scratch and simple logic games that teach coding basics without needing the internet. The government is already trying under the
Paksh, right, Paksh, hello. You just need to ask a question, which would be very, very short, right? Not a speech.
My question, 1 minute. If not coding, then what do you believe is more important right now for the future market? Because all jobs need basic skills of coding.
Chair, may I speak?
Go ahead.
At first, he was talking about how there is lack of infrastructure and how we should invest in infrastructure. Now he's talking about how coding is a necessary skill. So which question should we answer?
The
That was
second one.
answered. That was not a question.
The second
Sorry.
one. Does the opposition has an answer, or we could just go to the next question?
I mean, I can answer if the other speaker doesn't want to.
Angarini, do you want to answer that question?
She can do that. No problem.
Go ahead,
Alright,
Niyati.
so obviously we can't deny that coding is an important skill in today's world. Like, it is true that it's used in everything from banking or apps to online shopping to healthcare to everything. Learning coding helps to develop problem solving skills and all of the abilities, which is true. But is while where it is necessary, it's an option for students to learn, especially those who are interested in technology. It should not be forced on every child, regardless of their interest, resources, career goals, or even if it's necessary in our day-to-day lives or the jobs or the upcoming jobs. Thus, the goal should be to make coding accessible and encouraged, not compulsory and forced upon students. Students should have the freedom to explore coding alongside other skills so that they can choose what fits their passion and their future best, what fits their future plan and their interest, instead of just doing coding because it's being forced upon them.
Can I
Palash,
follow up? Request you to follow up.
go ahead.
You're saying coding shouldn't be compulsory, but then how do you suggest preparing the students for a digital future?
Palash, your question was the same, I believe. Both the questions which you just asked for the. No? Okay, cool. Never mind. Go ahead.
no. This one I'm asking how is the opposition suggesting to prepare the students for a digital future
Okay, okay.
if they don't want to make
Right now, okay, so for the opposition, you have 30 seconds to answer. Go ahead, fast.
Can the question be
Yeah.
repeated?
I got the question. Is it all right if I answer again?
Yeah.
Okay, so while preparing students for the digital future is important, making coding compulsory for all students is neither practical nor necessary, which I have already proven in my speech. The digital world also needs a diverse range of skills, which include critical thinking, creativity, communication, as well as emotional intelligence, which are things coding alone cannot provide. And the digital future is constantly evolving. Today's coding languages might even be outdated tomorrow. What matters most is teaching students how to learn and adapt, to grow, and evolve with the upcoming technology. Many digital tools and technologies are designed to be user friendly without requiring deep coding knowledge. For example, content creators, digital marketings, and many other roles thrive without any coding skills.